If someone wanted to join your team, how could he?
In general, we do like a massive recruitment kind of event-ish thing, like, like at the start of the semester in the academic year. Um, all the societies, have like activity fairs and like stands to show off your society and to, promote and, to ask them to join us. So we also do that as well at the start, so in September. And then because we have UROC in October, it kind of runs over to that time. And we can't really have new people joining us when we have UROC. So that's kind of a weird one for us. But yeah, so we basically send out like a Google form that you can fill out, and then we just see what do you study, which year are you in, why do you want to join Endeavour. I mean, the little trick that I use, because I made the forms, is that the why do you want to join is not a mandatory question. So if people want to say nothing, then they can. If you want to write like one or two sentences, you also can. And then some people just write an entire like essay into that little box that they have, and that's when that person a good person. That's how we found our software lead 2 years ago. Well, both of our software leads for the last 2 years has been very, very passionate, and both of their why do you want to join Endeavour question was very long. So that's a small tip from the recruiting people. Because of not having an aerospace department, like once we get like the fact that we exist out to people, we get a lot of people that are interested. It kind of follows through very naturally. So the biggest focus that we have to do is just getting our name out there, and just letting everyone that we're like a rocketry team. So yeah, and then once they kind of join in, we do like little workshops on different like softwares, like CAD programs, and like the I don't know, PCB making software. Is that what you'd call it, TM?
Yep.
Yes. So like the different softwares that you use, we do like a little workshop though, so they have all the skills that they need to basically design. And hopefully, oh, they're building a rocket. Oh, so cool. Um, I'd like to think that we're getting there as to be like being known as like one of the big engineering like student society teams, but
No, absolutely. I think the common mentality towards our society is, first and foremost, people love the idea of space, right? Regardless of where they come from, they think it's very exciting. It's obviously new and innovative. So when you tell them that you're a rocketry society, they're like, oh, you build rockets. And you say, yeah. They say, wow, that's really cool. It's their first like instant react. You guys are rocket scientists. And I'm like, kind of, but maybe. But it's definitely, I think we are established. I would definitely say that. I mean, when we have our school kind of group that supplies funding and things like that, and we're always the ones alongside the kind of Hyperloop team and the Formula student team. We're definitely one of the big three in terms of who they contact about facilities and funding and things like that. And that holds a lot of weight, when students find out that you're being advertised alongside those other two really well-known groups. It really, gives you street cred, I guess you could say.
Some people have, experience in rocketry even before coming into university, but a lot of people don't. And, Thomas, myself, like we didn't know anything about rocketry when we first started. So we don't expect people to have like previous knowledge on those. Like it's great if you have, but, we can always learn if you don't. So basically, as long as you're passionate, welcome to the team. So we do have like some non-Edinburgh University students, but there are definitely like only like one or two. So yeah, most of our team, well, almost all of our members are from our university. We don't necessarily like limit ourselves to Edinburgh University, but we do want people to be a student in the city of Edinburgh because we are Edinburgh student rocketry team. So that's basically kind of like the only limit I guess we set.
unless you're Anne, of course, in which
Yeah,
case you can do
that
your
is
job
true.
just as well from
I'm
Belgium.
an alumni, so
You still can.
I was a student. Yeah, I was a student when I first started. So less. So one or two. Our interviews aren't that hard either, because we only offer interviews to people that are basically we think is a good fit anyways.
We might not necessarily ask the most technical questions of people and students, but I guess that's kind of on purpose. It links in with our mission, because we don't necessarily want to deter someone who's passionate just because they might not have the skills required. We're here to teach, right? We're here to educate people on what it means to be like a rocket scientist. So even if they come in and they don't know how to use SolidWorks, they don't know how to use PCB designing software, we can teach them, and that's not going to be a limiting factor for them. So we try not to keep it too hard technically. Just finding passionate people is the hardest part, because at a university like Edinburgh, everyone's relatively skilled, not necessarily in aerospace, but in some manner. So I guess that's kind of just a little addition onto that. But I guess in terms of skills that they need, a basic knowledge in CAD is always good. So using SolidWorks, using something like Fusion or anything along those lines is great. If they can code, fantastic. It depends on where you go in the team. So if you join our software team, you obviously have to know how to code to a certain extent. If you join Maxwell, you might have to know a little bit about chemistry. So I guess it also just matters if they're nice people, and they have good people skills, because then you know that they'll work well within the team.
I don't think we ever had to ask ourselves the question on whether we should set an age limit. So I guess no, like right now, yeah.
I think in terms of if we're going to be doing university-related things, it becomes an issue. But otherwise, not particularly. Like if we go to Portugal, to Euroc, for example, you need to be a student, I believe. In order to engage within the team. So that's their problem, though. That's not our problem. We would love to take any people with us, like our grannies, our grandpas, our little sisters and brothers, whatever. That'd be nice. But yeah, we've never encountered anyone come to us that was too young or too old. We get a lot of our members kind of jumping ship from the Hyperloop team. Interestingly, so our founding father, Neil, for example, he used to work for the university's Hyped team. So do you know what Hyperloop is? I'm sure if you know Elon Musk.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so they're the group that kind of designs the pod, and very well established society, lots of funding, lots of people. We get a lot of them for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because we're small, but every year we get someone almost who comes from Hyped. So that's cool.
What could someone learn from joining your team?
I mean, SolidWorks. If you join the mechanical teams, then SolidWorks. First and foremost. No,
I think even if you're in payload, you still got to learn.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, unless you're in like software or some members in avionics, I think can get away with not learning SolidWorks. But yeah, I mean, like CAD and like practical like application of what you learned in your classroom to like a field that you're like passionate about. I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway that you get from joining Endeavour. And also time management, because this is something in addition to your studies. So you obviously kind of have to learn how to manage your time, or else you're gonna fail. Yeah. Either one or both. So that's another like soft skills, and like teamworking, all that jazz you want to put on your CV. Teamworking. What else? Like communication skills. Yeah, all the soft skills. Yeah,
I think it's like the kind of analogy would be is that you're basically working in a small scale company, and when I speak to like prospective students and stuff about the society, I say it's like joining a company without the risk of being fired. It's great. So you get to learn, as Anne said, all the soft skills that you'll need, and above and beyond what you learn in your course, because university is limited. It's not perfect. You don't necessarily get to learn everything you'd like to do. You know, some students might go through their whole university career without picking up a screwdriver, you know. But if you come and join Endeavour, you know, you need to know how to do that, and we'll teach you. It's a very like basic example, but yeah, it's just essentially like extending your university knowledge technically and from a soft skills perspective.
We do like a little workshop for all the incoming members. Most of the times, you can just jump straight into like the Darwin project without knowing anything in particular for rocketry. Like you kind of pick up as you go along in designing the new iteration of Darwin. So the Darwin team is all right. Maxwell, obviously, a bit more because there's a bit more, you know, engine specific knowledge that you have to know to, you know, start that project, and especially for the chemistry students as well. They kind of have to know how the reactions. I don't even know, like how the reactions, you know, go, what you need to do to prepare like the engine structures so that it's safe, how to dispose of it, how to, you know, take care, and all that stuff. So Maxwell, a bit more of a learning curve, and I'd say Bayes as well. You do need to have some pretty good like coding skills, because what they do is a lot more advanced in terms of avionics, like the actual like components themselves. I don't think they're like too crazy, you know, like IMUs. I think that's about it. I can't even remember. Maybe some gyros, barometers, yeah, things like that. But the actual like thrust vectoring and like the software that you need to run on the avionics is quite advanced. So yeah, so I think those two teams have a bit of a learning curve that some people do overcome, you know, just through sheer will force. There's like, I love this, I will do this, and they do. So that's pretty good. Like
strict timeline.
Yeah, so, that is also very true. Yeah.
For Darwin, obviously, every year we build a rocket, right? At least so far. And then we take it to a competition and we launch it, potentially. Maxwell and Bayes, they are kind of just working towards these soft deadlines. So they don't really have a necessity. So you don't have to hit the ground running. It is a steep learning curve, but you can kind of push it and extend it a little bit. Give yourself some more time.
Yeah. Research, basically. Research for the sake of research, you know, which is, I mean, honestly, that's the best kind of research, you know, when you don't have to, you know, pay your bills with your work you do. Well, okay, that's a bit of a tangent. Some people that just stay for a year, either because they want to like focus on their studies, or like, you know, they're just graduating, or they just don't want to do it anymore. And then you've got people like me that just can't seem to go. But yeah, so it really varies people by people, but people that tend to stay for at least 2-3 years, and people that tend to leave, sometimes they don't last a year. Like, you know, some people just don't have that kind of dedication. A bit of a shame, but at the same time, like, you know,
we're volunteering.
Yeah.
Can't force them.
And, you know, different people have different priorities, you know, that makes sense. But yeah, more or less around like 1 year, 2 year, given that we are a like 3-year-old team, I think that's pretty good average, you know. In January as like a preliminary design review, and then I think we're just kind of out of time to do like another design review at this point, I think, unfortunately. Yeah, but next year you can come along.
Yeah, we'll advertise a little bit more broadly, and then it'll obviously have online aspects, so you're more than welcome to come. And we might be hosting some for Maxwell as well, potentially, maybe this year, depending on how things go. Yeah. So keep an eye out on our LinkedIn or our Instagram, and you'll see some
Twitter. Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, you're welcome to come along. Absolutely.
How do you manage your team?
Structure-wise, it's probably a good thing to talk about that. So obviously, starting from the top, you have your kind of team lead, and then your operations lead as the kind of two, and then coming down from that, you have your technical leads and your outreach leads, and the kind of financial
Finance.
side of things as well, and
Marketing.
sponsorship.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the second tier. And then the technical leads are responsible for the team leads. And then the team leads are responsible for the members within that. So kind of comes down like a tree, very traditional kind of architecture. But for Darwin, it's a little bit more specific. We have dedicated software teams, structures teams, recovery, payload, avionics. Maxwell has something similar. We have like a chemistry, we have like a ground
structures.
Structures and some avionics, but then Bayes is just all over the place. They just do whatever they need to do, really. So that's kind of the management perspective. We have bi-weekly meetings where we meet up and talk about each team specifically, what their updates are, what issues they might have, talk about our funding situation, how much money we have left, where that's going, what our social media kind of plan is. And then if we're doing any outreach activities, yes, the next part-time, full-time, kind of answered already. Some people work full-time, even though they're not necessarily obligated to. It just depends on how passionate you are, and other people are a little bit more part-time. And then in terms of how we kind of handle all the logistics and stuff, we've tried Trello before, didn't really gel with it. So now we use Notion instead, if you've heard of that. Really, really powerful tool, but it also depends specifically on the team lead or the technical lead that's in charge. If they don't really use it that well, for example, our software lead doesn't use it. He uses draw.io to kind of plan and divvy out tasks from there, which is crazy. Don't know how he does that. But yeah, that's kind of the organizational things. And then remote members, multiple projects in parallel. Yeah, that's we operated during the peak of COVID. We're used to working remotely. I mean, we built a rocket in the height of lockdowns. And I think that's a testament to it. We're very used to working online, having our meetings. We use Discord. Sorry, I forgot to mention that a lot. And that's a really useful tool. So we have one kind of channel, I guess, or server, sorry. And then within that, everyone has a channel that they can operate in, voice channels where they can meet and things like that. And that's kind of where the majority of all of our organization happens. And then tasks and things are divvied out in Notion or draw.io if you're crazy. But then having the multiple projects in parallel, I guess this is kind of where we get an overview of that, because certain members in the team have access to everything and some don't. So for Anne and I, we can see everything that's going on. We can see all the updates just at a glance. And this is very important for Anne as the operations lead as well. She needs to keep track of all the babies. So I think it also, if you have passionate technical leads, you're going to have a more smooth running project because they are better at time management. They obviously have an investment in the project and they really like what they're doing. So they do it well.
Like every single little minor decisions that are made by all the teams. But we obviously cannot because, we've got so much time that we can't spend on Endeavour. So yeah, having a really reliable technical leads, team leads is really important. So yeah, we just try to find good people, and just roll with it, I guess.
Yeah. And then we all do speak English. I mean, Anne mentioned earlier that to study at the university, you have to have a certain proficiency in that. But, obviously being a very multinational society company, there are loads of languages. In fact, we probably should have had Alberto on today. He's Italian, so I think would have been a good shout. Next time, maybe you'll meet him one day. He's very cool. I think you'd really like to meet him.